Hey guys, and welcome back to Grace of a Military Child and Life podcast. Life from the perspective of a military family member is way different than a civilian standpoint. Military children and family members give up their hopes and dreams to be able to stand by and support their service member, and it isn't an easy lifestyle for anyone to live. I hope that this podcast is able to help connect the military community and give others just a glimpse into what the military life is like from the perspective of spouses and children. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Grace of a Military Child in Life. Today, I'm here with Tommy, who is a Marine Corps child. So welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing good.
Absolutely. So kind of tell me, because you have a little bit of a different story of being a military child. So kind of tell me what it was like for you growing up.
Well, my father was a Marine. He was in for through I think it was the beginning of Desert Storm around there. But he was out by the time I was born. So I kind of got the after effects of it, you know, with the discipline and whatnot. Everything that he learned throughout his time in, he tried to instill in me and in the house and the way the house was run. You know, keeping things clean, making sure that, you know, your clothes are ironed a certain way, your bed's made a certain way.
What is it like, you know, you have all of these, you know, different kind of, you said discipline, like, you know, making the bed and things like that, growing up as a child, but not many kids have that. So what is that kind of like, you know, for you kind of, I guess, in comparison to other kids?
I mean, for me, it was a little difficult because I'm a rebel. I don't really like to do what I'm told. I kind of like to, you know, if you're telling me to do something, I like to go and do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, and it's weird because like I'll do it two ways. I'll either do it, I'll do what you're saying, but I'll do it my way.
Yeah.
To, like, make myself feel better, or I'll go and do the exact opposite just to piss you off. So we would kind of butt heads a lot with that. But it was fun, you know. We had a good time growing up. My grandfather was a little different. My grandfather was a Marine as well. He was in the Korean War, but he was kind of reserved and didn't really talk much about that.
Yeah.
You know, anytime somebody would ask him something about like the time he was in, it was always, he would tell stories about how he caught malaria and had to be airlifted to the nearest hospital and on the side of a helicopter with, you know, 104 fever. And then he would talk about like how if, like, let's say something dropped on the floor, like food or something dropped on the floor, you know, it would be like, oh, throw that out. No, what the hell are you doing? I used to eat burgers off the floor with rats crawling all over them, you know, when he was in Korea and whatnot. So that was kind of his take on everything, but he didn't really talk much about what went on in the war or like what he did. And, you know, that he kind of kept to himself.
Yeah, because it's such a different time frame, you know, from, you know, that era to the era we're in now. A lot of people didn't talk about what they've been through, what they go through, what it was like, you know, serving in those, you know, wars, where now it's like, you know, we talk about those things like, you know, my dad was in Afghanistan. He served during that time frame. And, you know, like we talk about that. And there's, you know, tons of other service members who it's like, well, what was your experience like, you know, comparing and talking about, you know, those things where they didn't necessarily talk about that at that time.
Yeah, like my grandfather had he had 2 Purple Hearts, and I never found out why.
Yeah, and you know,
I mean, he had all of his limbs and everything. You know, thank God he lived to be 84 with no like major health issues.
Right.
But I never found out like what were you doing that, or like what happened to you that you got the Purple Hearts.
Right, and you know that's a significant, you know, military award that, you know, kind of goes unnoticed, and it's not very common to get 2 of them because normally, especially nowadays with the OEF, OIF wars, like, you know, coming to a close, a lot of those guys who got Purple Hearts, had to be separated from military service because of their injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, it's a different time frame. It's a different generation, coming in and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried to go and join myself. I tried to continue on, the family legacy back about 10 years ago. I tried to join the Marines and they told me no because of my tattoos. Their
Yeah.
tattoo policy at the time was it can't be below the t-shirt line and they can't connect and can't be, certain amount of inches off your wrist. And the guy was like, "Oh, go get your tattoos removed and come back." Okay, see you later. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But they let me take the ISVAB, which was 4 hours of my life that I'll never get back.
Right.
And then they told me that the tattoo policy, they waited until, they wanted to waste my time and have me go in there and go through this crazy test for no reason.
Yeah.
The Navy told me no. The Coast Guard told me no. The Air Force told me no, all for the same reasons.
Yeah.
And, they were like, "Oh, just go join the Army. They don't care. They wear long sleeves and whatever." And I was just like, "Nah, I can't do that."
Yeah, I'm an Army
Nothing against the
kid,
Army.
but
That's the whole, like
yeah.
rivalry between Marines and Army is just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Now I'm going to have my balls broken for the rest of my life. No, thanks. I get that
Yeah.
enough as it is.
Yeah, no, I'm an Army kid and I was engaged to a Marine for a little while and, dated him, but it's a totally different branch and totally different world. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, now tattoo policies have changed and, updated with the times for sure. So,
Yeah, I'm sure if I tried again, they'd probably let me in, but it's not
yeah.
for me at this point in my life.
Yeah, exactly. You find different things and, sometimes it's just growing up isn't part of it and that's about it. So, and then moving on.
Yeah, I chalk it up to it was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. What, kind of experiences do you think you had growing up in a, still military household that you carry with you to this day?
Um, don't take any
Yeah.
from anybody. That's partly from my grandfather and my father both being Marines, and also from growing up in an Italian family. You don't take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
They tried to teach me that as best as they could. I kind of just, I'm a little more of a passive aggressive type of person. I kind of just let things go and don't let things get to me as much. So I think I'm a little more level headed than most people when it comes to that. I don't take things personally. It's just, it is what it is. You want to talk shit? Talk shit. Fine. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Doesn't affect my life, Your perception of me is just a reflection of you. So why
Yeah.
should I take it personally?
Yeah, absolutely. And, growing up in, being around and surrounded by military, it's like you learn so many things. And, that's one of them. Like, if something happens, and it is what it is. And you keep going and you keep moving forward because what are you going to do about it? Like, there's nothing to do
Exactly.
about it. And a lot of, the training that the military gets is that, emotion has to be completely disregarded because that's when things happen. That's when, people die, unfortunately. And, you have to kind of draw the line somewhere, especially when, working in a war zone in combat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world and it's a different atmosphere that you don't necessarily live in. And not growing up, I was a reserve child, so I didn't grow up near a military base for quite some time. And it's so different, the difference between civilian kids and military kids. You don't know until you actually are in it and living it, and it's incredible.
There's a certain energy too that like a military child will bring along that other people will be able to pick up on.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, people that meet me, and they hang out with me and get to know me, they're like, once I tell them, yeah, my father was a Marine, my grandfather was a Marine, blah, blah, blah. They're like, I thought, I kind of figured. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know, something about me. I guess they could just tell, but that's what I think. I think there's a certain energy that you get brought up in that you kind of carry along with you that just sticks with you and gets noticed.
Yeah, because I always think that military kids, and it's obvious, like military kids are so much more resilient than just civilian kids because of the way we're brought up, by the way that our parents raised us. And you just instantly connect with military kids no matter how long you've known them.
Hmm.
And even I have friends that I talked to and met 8 years ago when I lived in Texas, lost connection with them. And then, you get connection with them again, and it's like nothing ever happens. You just click, and, you know, such a different connection between military kids and, connecting military kids and civilian kids than just, regular, friendships and stuff that you make out in the civilian world.
Hmm. Yeah, you kind of get that like sense of family.
Yeah. Everyone says military family, and you don't really know it until you actually get it. And then once it's there, it's like you have forever friends, and they become built-in family, and you know, you wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad, he used to talk a lot about what he did when he was in and things that happened to him through boot camp and his little riffraffs with the drill instructors and
Yeah.
it's always fun listening to it. And then he was actually on a ship for 6 months out in the Mediterranean. So getting to hear about that was pretty cool. He got to travel a lot. He was in, Israel, Italy, um, all over Europe, through the military. So basically, the Marine Corps paid for him to travel and see a lot of shit and
Yeah.
experience a lot, which that was always cool. My mother was always jealous of that. My mother never left the country, so but my
Yeah.
my dad's passport is pretty full, so
Yeah.
she's but he my mother actually waited for him um for 4 years while he was in. They they've been together since they're 16, so they're married now 30 something years, almost 40 years.
Wow.
And he left, went to the military, and she waited for him 4 years until he came out.
Wow.
And they went from there, and here I am.
Yeah. And like, my parents always told me from a young age, I was like, I want to travel the world. I want to see the world. I want to experience different cultures. I want to do things. And they're like, well, join the military, travel on the military's dime because you really get to see the world. You get to do so many things. My dad was stationed in Germany when he was 19. And so, I mean, just being so young in a different country is insane too. And, hearing his stories on what it was like over there. And being able to just travel, but like all around Europe at such a young age, like we can't over here say that we can just travel to a different country, um,
Yeah,
and get on the train for the day. Um, but, we always, my mom wasn't around at that point. My sister and I weren't around at that point. And so we're like, oh my gosh, like you did all the fun stuff with that. So, you got to
yeah,
deal with
like all
that.
cool shit happened before we came around.
Exactly. And like, I mean, we did Ohio, Texas, and Florida, and that was really cool still too. And, get experiencing the cultures of, within the United States of the North, the South, and then, Florida South versus Texas South is so different. And so, now it's just like traveling yourself, I'm deciding if I would like to join at one point or not. And, you know, just kind of going and experiencing different things. And I think even if I don't join, definitely the military has given me that traveler's heart and, wanting to just explore and see so many different things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference just between East Coast and West Coast. Is a whole totally different way of life and mentality, and um, So like I grew up in New York, and when I went to Colorado when COVID kind of was somewhat here, but not really, and
Yeah.
um, just the whole like people's way of thinking was, to me at least, I don't know, very strange. It was like almost alien to me.
Yeah, because,
But New York in itself is its own. New York, New York, and New York City are two different places, two different
yeah.
ways of life, two different worlds. I grew up in the city, so um, that in itself, I think, uh, takes a toll on somebody.
Yeah.
It's it's a stressful way of living. I'm happy
Yeah.
I don't live there anymore. Um, I always said that I wouldn't trade growing up there, but I definitely wouldn't live there forever.
Yeah. It's like a transient like kind of thing where it's like you can only be there for so long and then it's time to go and time to move on and do other things and experience, places that are not as chaotic as the middle of New York City, like one of the biggest cities in this country are.
It's just too many people. I don't think that human beings are meant to live that close to one another all day and night long.
Yeah, I've been to both like Manhattan and like, center of New York City, and I've also been to like Long Island, and it's two different totally places within the same state. It's insane the difference.
Just the five boroughs alone are completely different.
Yeah,
Each borough is
absolutely.
different. So like Manhattan, Manhattan is its own animal. Queens, Queens is a totally different animal. Brooklyn has its own way of living. Um, Staten Island is like the forgotten borough.
Right.
That's what it's like known as because I don't know. That's like the last borough that gets plowed with the snow, and um, that's where like a lot of the shit happens. A lot of like so Staten Island used to be a landfill, and then I forget what year, but they converted it and made it houses, and people live there now. And there's like a certain smell in Staten Island that you kind of recognize.
Yeah.
It's like dormant still, but you know it's there just
Right.
because of the fact that it used to be a landfill. So everybody calls it Staten Island dump.
Right.
Um, and then the Bronx. I mean, I don't know. I try to stay away from the Bronx just because it's the Bronx. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. New York is. I'm trying to think of a way to explain what it gives you a certain kind of edge growing up there just because of the amount of people that you're around in contact with, um, dealing with, and there's definitely a lot of snakes there
Yeah.
as far as like people, not reptiles, but like people.
Yeah.
Um, and everybody's just trying to get ahead, and they just whoever they have to step on, they step on, and they do what they got to do. At the end of the day, it's all me, 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 never we.
Right. And that's like something that I
That's
find
like,
so, special about like the military community is like it's all one team. And while
hmm
you do have those people who are still all me, 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 you get the anywhere you go. But it's, one huge
yeah,
team that everyone works together and, has one common mission.
yeah, exactly. They all
Yeah.
understand that we're all here, and this is what we have to do. So instead of fighting against one another, let's do it together, and everybody shares the same common goal, which is
Yeah.
kind of like life. Everybody just wants to live their life, be free, and be happy, and do what they want to do.
Yeah. And a lot of, people in, places like New York City and, other things that it's hard to realize that there are other people and there are other things going on where it's like, as part of military families, it's like, we have one common goal. Like we're all just trying to do our best and we're all working towards, the same thing. And let's help one another get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so different and so strange and so unique in so many different ways. And it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't change my childhood for anything in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the last thing I always like to ask, and some people find it the hardest question, but what advice would you give to another military kid?
That is a hard one. Because I would say, listen to whatever they're trying, whatever your military family is trying to teach you. Try to listen to it and grasp it. But that makes me sound like a hypocrite because like I said, I used to do the exact opposite of anybody would tell me. So, but I mean, that's kind of the best thing that I can think of as far as like advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would say it in a way of take the part of it that resonates, or take the core of it and make it resonate in a way that you understand it.
Yeah.
So like the same way that, I don't want to get into like religion, but the same way that all of these millions of religions have the same core principles, but they're just told in different ways, different characters, different stories and shit like that. It's the same. You can kind of take it the same way as what a military family would try to instill to you. So it's like, it's all the same core principles, the discipline, the, doing the right thing and the, like emotional intelligence and all of that kind of at the base of it is the same, but just make it fit you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing, your unique version of your military life and upbringing. And even though you didn't, experience living on base and moving and deployments, like, military life is still military life. So thank you for being on and sharing your experience and what you've learned throughout the military life as a child.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Grace of a Military Child and Life. Make sure to set a reminder for every Tuesday to listen to a new episode. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Grace of a Military Child and Life. If you have any questions or want to be on the podcast, send a message to one of our social media platforms or email grace.of.a.military.child@gmail.com. See you next week.